Hello dear students, welcome to SJ's classes. Thank you so much for joining me again. After ONV Kurup's A Requiem to Mother Earth, Balachandran Chullikat's Where is John, Vishnu Narayan Nambudri's The Autograph Tree, I will discuss B. Sugatha Kumari's poem The Temple Bell. If you haven't yet watched my video lessons on the before mentioned poets and their works of art, please do watch it. If you have any comments to share regarding the video lesson, you can use the comment space that you can find below the video. So before we move into the poem, let's have a brief introduction to the poet. Sugatha Kumari is an Indian poet and activist who has been at the forefront of environmental and feminist movements in Kerala. She was born in 1934 and is a native of the Thiruvananthapuram district in the state of Kerala. Her activism was probably influenced by her poet father Bodheshwaran's social activism and nationalistic fervor. Sugatha Kumari started publishing poetry in the early 1960s. Her early poems appeared under a male pseudonym in the Madhubhumi Weekly. Her poetic works often reflected and addressed appalling and pathetic situations of life that have become part and parcel of the society she lived in, and sought answers and solutions to tide over them. She always had a firm and clear vision and understanding of developments taking place in the society and never missed a chance to make her voice heard. This voice often forced authorities to sit, listen, think, and pursue an acceptable course of action. As a poetess, Miss Sugatha Kumari is best remembered for her works like Muthuchippi, which can be translated as Pearl Oyster, Padira Pookal, Pavam Manava Hridayam, Irul Chiragugal, Ratrimala, Ambalamani, Kurinji Pookal, Tulavarsha Pacha, and Radha Evide. Most of her poetic works had a special place for Mother Nature, and some of them delves on human relationships and emotional traverse of the mind. In 1968, Sugatha Kumari won the Kerala Sahitya Academy for her work Padira Pookal, which can be translated as Flowers of Midnight. Ratrimala, which can be translated as Night Rain, won her the Kendra Sahitya Academy Award in the year 1978. Let's also look at some of the important designations that she carried in her life. She is the founder secretary of the Prakriti Samrakshana Samiti, an organization for the protection of nature. She was also the founding member of Abhaya, a home for destitute women and a daycare center for the mentally ill. She was also the former chairperson of the Kerala State Women's Commission. She had also served as the principal of Jawahar Balabhavan, Thiruvananthapuram. Sugatha Kumari has won numerous other awards and recognitions, some of them being Odakuril Award in 1982, Vailar Award in 1984, Indira Priyadarshini Vriksha Mitra Award in 1986, Ashan Prize in 1991, Vallathol Award in 2003, Kerala Sahitya Academy Fellowship in 2004, Eduthacham Puraskaram in 2009, and Saraswati Samman in 2012. In 2006, she was honored with Padma Shri. Let's have a short introduction to the poem that we will be discussing as part of this video lesson, which is The Temple Bell. The Temple Bell is the title poem of her 1981 collection. In it, the poet uses hitherto unexplored ways of presenting her anguish and sorrow. The poet gives a visual explanation of what she sees and then leads the readers to the subtle nuances of layers of meaning. The poem is also a commentary on the hypocrisy and shallowness of contemporary life. It expresses a sense of urgency in its plea to reinvigorate the values that guided humanity in the past. The tone maintained throughout this poem is that of a pitiful and a gloomy one. As a whole, the poem is a call to reinvigorate the state of poetry and to uphold the relevance of adherence to dharma or religious faith in this hypocritical and shallow world. The poet, fed up with all the pretensions of contemporary life, now finds refuge only in a deep prayer. So that is a short introduction to the poet as well as the poem. Now let's discuss the first few stanzas of the poem, The Temple Bell. Let's read the very first stanza. Alone I watch and brood over the temple gopuram, now a shambles, the sanctum bat infested, the ancient banyan tree crouching on its roots, the moss covered pond, the empty hands of broken lamp holders, and the quiet deep solitude. When I stand contemplating them, suddenly inside the twinkling sound of a tender bell. So we understand that the poet is at some temple and she is at the threshold of that temple and she is alone. Let's look at the various sights that she confronts at the space. Alone I watch and brood. So the poet is alone and she is watching and brooding over something. What is it? To brood means to think deeply. And she is watching and brooding over the temple gopuram. Gopuram is the entrance of a temple and she is brooding over the entrance. And what is it that she is thinking so much about? The temple gopuram is now a shambles. Shambles means in a state of disorder, in a dilapidated condition. So the temple as such is in a dilapidated condition, and this sight is probably what led the poet to think deeply on. The sanctum bat infested. Sanctum means a holy place or a sacred place. Now this particular sacred place, as she said in the previous line, is now in shambles. It's in a dilapidated condition and it's also bat infested with numerous bats. There is the presence or the space has been invaded by numerous bats. The sanctum bat infested, the ancient banyan tree crouching on its roots. Now crouching means to appear to stand on its knee. So the ancient banyan tree appears to be nearer to the ground. It used to have a mighty appearance before, but as of now it has a crouching appearance, as if it is about to fall to the ground. Look at the condition of the pond. It is moss covered. Moss, as you know, are tiny leafy stemmed flowerless plants, that which you see in areas that are quite unused by or not traversed by people, not used by people. So the sanctum is bat infested, the banyan tree has a crouching appearance, and the pond is covered with moss. Let's look at the other sides. The empty hands of broken lamp holders and the quiet deep solitude. So you also find these sides in the space. The lamps are broken. The hands which used to be lit in the earlier days are now broken. It's not lit anymore. And there is an ever-pervading silence, loneliness. in that space. And probably it's because of this situation, this plight of the space, that forced the poet to contemplate on it. When I stand contemplating them, suddenly inside the twinkling sound of a tender bell. So it's at this point that the poet hears the tingling sound of a bell, of a tender sound coming from inside. So overall, after reading the first stanza, we get the picture of a dilapidated temple gopura. The space is bat infested. The tree, which is banyan tree, is almost crouching. The pond is covered with moss, and the lamp holder has lost its hands. There is nothing but silence that pervades the space. And it's at this particular moment that the poet hears the sound of a tingling bell. And the poet enquires or asks a question to herself. Who tarries here in this lonely gloom? The bell tolls to wake up whom? So the poet doesn't understand for whom does the bell tolls. Now who is there for whom the bell is actually tolling? So she asks the question, who tarries here? Who spends time here? That is the meaning of the word tarries, meaning of the verb tarries. Who spends time here in this lonely gloom? So she described this place as that which is lonely and also that which is encompassed with gloominess. So she basically asked the question, who is that resides here? Who is that who lives here in this lonely space? And she also asked this question, for whom is the bell tolling? As I turn back in the dark, there hangs a bronze bell, its tinkling sound coming from no ringing hand, spilling over the wind, far, far away from the human touch, somewhat like a munikanya in meditation. A broken temple bell that still chants, though in shattered tunes. And who is here to listen? A god turned to a mere rock? Or the rocks who come stealthily to carry away the god? Or the horde of bats fluttering in the ruins? Or the sulking night spirit? So it's the sound of the bell that leads the poet to ask a series of questions. As she turns back in the dark, she sees this bronze bell and she understands that it is from this particular bronze bell that the tinkling sound has come, and she realizes that the sound from the bell did not come because it was rung by some person. It was done by the wind. Its tinkling sound coming from no ringing hand, spilling over the wind. So it's probably the flowing wind that has caused the bell to ring. Far, far away from the human touch, somewhat like a munikanya in meditation. So she equates the temple bell to a munikanya. So probably the poet is trying to give some sort or attribute some sort of divinity to the bronze bell by comparing it or by calling it a munikanya. Far, far away from the human touch, somewhat like a munikanya in meditation. A broken temple bell that still chants, though in shattered tunes. So, though it is in a shattered state, it gives out this chant. Though in shattered tunes, the chanting of the broken bell pervades the sweet musical notes throughout the temple premise. And again she goes back to this question that she started asking in the previous stanza. And who is here to listen? So first of all the question was, who is it that rung the bell? Now she asks the question, who is here to listen? A god turned into a mere rock. So there is nobody to worship. Earlier people used to worship the stone imagining it to be the representative of various deities. Now there is nobody to worship these rocks and gods, and therefore it has become mere rocks. So who is here to listen? A god turned into a mere rock? Or the rocks who come stealthily? Rocks are scoundrels or wicked or evil people. These rocks who come stealthily. Stealthily means secretly. Secretly to carry away the god. Now the poet might be hinting at people who try to sell faith through the characters of these rocks. So is it for them that the bell is tinkling? Or the horde of bats fluttering in the ruins? Or is it for, earlier in the first stanza the poet had stated that the space is a bat infested one, and here in this third stanza she asks, is it for the horde of bats, for the multitude, or horde means in great numbers, so is it for the multitude, the numerous bats that have come to that space? Is it for those animals that the bell is tinkling? Or the horde of bats fluttering in the ruins? So again she describes the space as something which is in ruins, something which has been almost destroyed. Or is it twinkling for the sulking night spirits? Sulking means bad tempered, so she refers to the spirits as things or entities that are in a irritated state, in something which are very bad tempered. This bell that now chimes in the wind was once cast in bronze in smelting heat and hung up above in the holy corridor by someone, his palms joined together in prayer, in times redolent with fragrant flowers and lamps shining bright, as the bell spread its radiance on the god, all smeared in sandal paste. The bell that hums songs at the touch of the wind, whispered the excited people. This bell that now chimes in the wind, so this bell that is emitting the sound because of the wind, was once cast in bronze in smelting heat. So this bell was once made out of bronze, and it was made out of smoldering smelting heat, and it was hung up above in the holy corridor by someone, his palms joined together. So this bell was once made by some devotee during the early prosperous years of the temple, and it was hung there in prayer. So someone had did it out of respect, someone had did it so that he could please the gods, someone had did this because he wanted the bell to be his prayer for his gods. By someone his palms joined together in prayer, in times redolent with fragrant flowers. Redolent means having a strong, pleasant odor, smell. In times redolent with fragrant flowers. So the bell was hung at a time during which the temple flourished, which can be regarded as the prosperous years of the temple. And lamps shining bright as the bell spreads its radiance. And this bell used to spread radiance. It used to spread its brightness. It used to spell good health and happiness all around the space. And lamps shining bright as the bell spread its radiance on the god, all smeared in sandal paste. So we have this custom of smearing, covering the idol in sandal. I hope you are familiar with it. So the bell used to spread its radiance even on top of the god who was smeared in sandal paste, who was covered in sandal paste. The bell that hums songs at the touch of the wind, whispered the excited people. So look at this great bell. It used to hum songs even at the touch of the wind. So it used to give out, it used to emit these beautiful sounds, these rhythmic chants, even when it was touched by wind. And this was stated by excited people who were excited to listen to the chants that were made by the bell. So This is all that I will be discussing as part of this video lesson. Thank you so much for watching. In the next video lesson, I will discuss the remaining stanzas. Thank you.